Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Einav and I'm an energy healer and an alignment coach. I work mostly, but not only, with people suffering from chronic pain, chronic illnesses, and unexplained medical conditions to help them heal or reduce their symptoms. Healing Conversations podcast is all about bringing the message of alternative healing for people who are suffering. Right. So let's get started. With me today, Lauri McKean. Lauri, very nice to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here.
Wonderful. Now, before we get started properly to dive into your information and story, I will read your bio so everyone can know more about you the way I do. So, Lauri McKean is a transformational coach and health and wellness advocate. She has a very diverse background that includes decades of experience in natural health, the Chinese energetic arts of Tai Chi and Qigong, Chinese medicine and acupuncture, women's empowerment and transformational coaching. She believes that health stems from the alignment of all aspects of being physical, mental, emotional, and energetic, and applies this with her clients as well as to her own chronic autoimmune condition. This is also the foundation of a heart centered boundaries program that helps people create loving boundaries in order to thrive in their lives. Okay, I am very ready for this conversation. So
Mm,
let's
thank
get
you.
started.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's such a pleasure to be here. And I think this is such an important topic. And it's been a passion of mine, of course, for like I said, you said, decades. This idea of, health and wellness and different ways that we can promote health and wellness and really heal from things like chronic diseases in a different paradigm, in an alternative way than kind of the Western medical model, maybe in conjunction with it, but not just solely that. And that's really really part of my passion. And what I love is kind of looking at how do we create health, how do we create wellness, how can we create just lives that are fulfilling and where we're thriving by getting more alignment. And I really love working with alignment that is like the physical level, emotional, the mental, and the energetic. And my background is largely in the energetic realm with all the Chinese medicine and the Tai Chi and Qigong. But I just really see for myself and for others, clients, that when those things really get aligned and cleared out, and the obstacles and the barriers get cleared out of for that alignment to happen, then magic and miracles start to start to appear. So it's important work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And of course, I do similar things, uh,
Yes.
different but similar. But it's really interesting. I find that when we are in that space, we understand more what alignment means. And I think that
Yes.
sometimes people kind of thinking, hmm, no, but as you say, when they get down to it and they really understand that it's this alignment, it's operating from everywhere in the same level, that you can really move forward in a way that brings you forward, right? In
Yeah.
healing and life.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. And I had the pleasure of getting to experience, some of your work with the clearing the emotional codes, and it was, just again that powerful, energetic work, and it makes a huge difference. Thank you.
but tell me, how did that all start for you? Where did it start?
Well, it's kind of been, building and building over, over decades. It really started, my journey in this really started, one, with natural foods and working in that area. But at the same time, I started taking Tai Chi and Qigong, the Chinese energetic arts of Tai Chi and Qigong, when I was 21, actually, 33 years ago or 4 years ago now. And it was almost an accident that I stumbled upon these. It wasn't very intentional. I was not on a conscious healing journey at that point. It was really because I was with a boyfriend who was kind of a martial arts nut, and I didn't like the martial arts, and so he said, "Well, let's try doing Tai Chi together, because I think you'll like that." And then I ended up loving it, and that was my first exposure to, energy and how to consciously be with and utilize the energy that is within us and around us. And it became this passion, and I started, I studied it for years, taught it, had been teaching it for many years. And so that's where it started. And then being interested in that and excited about that led me to kind of what's the next step. And for me, that was going into Chinese medicine and acupuncture. So I studied that for 4 years and then practiced as an acupuncturist and Chinese medicine practitioner for about 16 years until things got really disrupted with moving in the pandemic and such. So now I'm taking those things and really doing more online work with people. And I find that actually I love it because I can add in even more. People have a kind of, with acupuncture, that there's kind of this box of like what people think will happen in a treatment, and being more in the transformational coaching world, I can use all of those things and just keep it much broader and have more impact. So.
And who do you mostly work with?
I primarily work with women. That seems to be who's more drawn to me. I'm not adverse to working with men. But that, again, part of my background is also in women's empowerment. So that comes in, I think, as well. And I work with women, who not necessarily all have chronic health issues, but they do often have more relationship issues. And I see this web, I see all these intersections. So to me, often relationships also obviously affect health, and health affects relationships. So, I can kind of niche and talk about one thing that I do, like, oh, I mainly work with relationships, but really it's health as well, because they're all interconnected. And certainly, what I'm primarily working with now is a program around helping women create and maintain really healthy and loving boundaries. And I got interested in the boundaries work because I started realizing how foundational they are, how interpersonal boundaries are very, very foundational to how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to others. And for many people, and they're also very energetic. And for many people, they have these very kind of leaky boundaries. I would call like kind of leaky boundaries. And it just, having those leaky boundaries sets them up for a lot of stress and a lot of discord, because they're not able to kind of and I should say we, because I definitely count myself in this. I'm working on this myself, although I've been in that process for a while. But we tend to overgive to other people. We tend to try and please other people, and that extends our energy out in ways that isn't healthy. And so what I find is that a lot of people who tend to be these follow into patterns of rescuing or people pleasing or overgiving, will develop a lot of health issues, and are, until they're able to really kind of focus on themselves and not have this leaky energy, their health and wellness will be problematic, as well as their relationships. Because, it's funny, because we think that, oh, if I'm giving to everyone else, or I'm, helping everyone else all the time, then my relationships with them will be strengthened. And actually, that's not true. They may be strengthened kind of in an artificial way, but they're not really strong, fulfilling, authentic relationships.
Mm.
So
I
that's
just
go ahead. I'm sorry. Mhm.
So I just wanted to stop for a second, and I thought maybe we'll just briefly touch on actually what do we mean by boundaries, and um, yeah, and how do really people know that they have a problem with that, or how do they know that they have leaky boundaries, like you said?
Yes. Yeah. Well, common symptoms, I would say a symptom of leaky boundaries would be things like being overwhelmed, not feeling like you have enough time for yourself, uh, resentment. I think resentment is a huge one because often people who have kind of leaky boundaries and are over giving to others um, get resentful eventually because they're doing that. They're not feeling recognized. They're not feeling like reciprocated. And so, yeah, frustration, resentment, discord in relationships basically is often a sign of there's something that needs to be um, there needs to be shored up. And to me, boundaries are kind of like clear agreements. And the first agreement is with yourself, understanding self, because we can't control other people, obviously, and we can't make them have the same agreement as we have, but we can really focus on our agreements first with ourselves and really getting, in my program that I teach, which is called Heart-Centered Boundaries, it's very a comprehensive approach. And I start with what is it that we really, really want and desire and need? Because especially a lot of women especially, are kind of disconnected from their needs, their own needs, and are more kind of tapped in, especially if they've been mothers, and more tapped into others' needs. The maybe a spouse or a partner, maybe kids, maybe aging parents, but often we're looking outward at other people's needs and desires more than our own. So that's kind of the first part of the boundaries work for me, is like actually knowing. It's like, oh, what do I really, really want and need? Um, and I will clarify that, in the kind of conventional dialogue about boundaries, boundaries are often what we don't want. There's an emphasis on like, don't do that, don't cross this boundary, don't, say this or do this. And I think that's part of it, but it's a disservice to miss the part that's like, oh, what do I want? What is it that's important to me? So that's where I start with the boundaries.
So one thing that is interesting, because you're saying that a lot of the, I mean, I know from my work that a lot of the time we say that people that are more prone to illnesses, or at least
Hmm.
chronic illnesses, are the ones that, like you say, the people pleasers, the one that do conflict avoidance, the one that tends to take
Yes.
everybody's responsibilities on their own, on themselves, or people that are perfectionists, this kind of people. So really, all of these people, really, there is no boundaries. So how challenging it must be for them to all of a sudden not only understand that they are allowed to have boundaries, but also that this is not necessarily a bad thing, that it's not, actually it's kind of looking at it that if people are no longer staying with you, then maybe they were not really yours to begin with. But what kind of conversation do you have around that?
Um, well, it's important, I think, to have people open up their concept of relationships, of concept of boundaries, because it really, again, we really tend to think about relationships in terms of like giving and giving to the other person so we receive from them. And it really starts with ourselves first. First we have to give to ourselves. And so with these chronic health issues, it's it's often a disconnection from self. And with problems with boundaries, it's a disconnection from self. And it's trying to source outside of self. So I really feel it has to start with kind of a paradigm shift of sourcing from within. And again, I have some very kind of simple exercises, and we can even play with some on the podcast if you like. But
Please.
simple practices to start sourcing from within more. And once you start sourcing from within, things really start to shift. So I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but that's the
I,
message, right? Mm-hmm.
no, I think it definitely touched on that. I was just kind of reflecting on how big of a step this must feel sometimes for people when they start to understand that boundaries is a challenge for them. I mean, I think a lot
Yeah.
of people do say, "Oh, I don't. Boundaries is a big problem for me," or I never set them, or you know. But to all of a sudden realize that actually it's more of a benefit than you know.
Yeah. And I completely agree. If you're somebody who all of a sudden is like realizing or being told you need to have better boundaries, it's a huge step. If it's just go from now you know you need boundaries and just from A to B now have boundaries. It's not that easy. And that's why I have an entire program with steps to get people there because there has to be shifts again, physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically. All of those areas have to start to shift in order for boundaries to start happening in an easier way. And it's really unfortunate because the conventional method, the conventional dialogue around boundaries really has just been, well, you just need to have more willpower. You just need to, be stronger. And that's crazy to me because all of these parts of ourselves need to shift and heal and go through some transformation to get to the place where boundaries no longer have to be about willpower and this mental, you know, mind game of willpower. It's more about you can get to a place where boundaries become something that just kind of radiates out of you, that are a part of you. Like some people have described in the past, what I've heard is like boundaries become like an energetic standard versus something you have to create and hold. And I feel like, when you get the alignment of all these places right, that's when the boundaries just are something that emanates out of you, essentially, and are very easy. Boundaries can be very easy. It just takes some steps to get there first.
So maybe in a minute, like you say, if you can give us some tips or demonstrations
Mm-hmm.
or something, that would be wonderful. But first, there's just a question here from one of the viewers saying, "Will you please explain sourcing from within?"
Ah, that's a good one.
Mm.
Um, yes, to me, it goes back to my Tai Chi and Qigong background. I'm also an instructor in a program called the Art of Feminine Presence and Masculine Presence, and that is very much about sourcing from in with as well. Um, so it's really about kind of starting to, first of all, be able to sense and be aware of different energy centers in our body, as well as how the energy from the earth and the energy from above, the heavens, the cosmos, whatever you want to call it, comes through. And this all starts for me, and how I usually instruct people is to drop awareness down into the lower abdomen, into the kind of the pelvic bowl area. And again, this is a very important energetic center, and it helps kind of ground ourselves inside. So do you want to kind of, I can take us through a little bit of a visualization of that if you like, but that would be where I would start.
Sounds perfect. Let's go.
Okay, fun. All right. So I would just encourage anyone who's listening, if it's safe and you feel safe, you can close your eyes right now and get comfortable. Yeah, just finding a comfortable position, and notice what you're aware of right now in your body. For most of us, we're probably kind of, our awareness is more like up in our head or our forehead. And I'm going to invite you to imagine your kind of focus, your awareness dropping down. Maybe you're imagining, you're sensing like it's a staircase down that you're going, you're descending. Maybe it's like an elevator. Just see if you can become more aware inside your body and down lower. If you can go past your chest and down lower into your abdomen, that's great. If you can even go lower down into kind of the center of the pelvic bowl, that's wonderful too. Just see how much you can be focused on the inside of your body, the energy, the space, and how low. Once you've kind of gotten to that place where you can be inside and lower down in the abdomen, just see if you can sense yourself breathing from that area. Sense the movement of your breath in that area. Just enjoying it. You don't need to do it right. You just, whatever you can sense into inside you right now is perfect. And just enjoy that connection with yourself, that internal space in yourself. And just for contrast, for a moment, go back up to your head for contrast, and notice how that feels. And then again, allow yourself to drop down with your awareness, with your focus, down again as far as you can. Just noticing how that feels. There's no right or wrong, it's just noticing. Breathing in that area, and then I'm going to invite you just a gentle inquiry, kind of sensing from that lower area, just asking yourself, what is it that I desire now? Or what is it that I desire for the rest of the day? And if your mind starts to answer, just say, thank you, mind. I'm just going to listen below for a few moments. And just see if anything pops in. And maybe it's something simple like, oh, I need to drink some water right now. Or maybe it's something bigger. Just simply notice. Good. And then just kind of thanking that awareness as we begin to close that small practice. And as you kind of open your eyes, see if you can still have some awareness down there, down inside. See if you can have awareness even as you look around the room or the screen or you're listening, still having some awareness inside your body down below. Yeah, and I'd be curious if, any reactions from you, Einav, or anyone who wants to like type in how it felt or what they experienced.
I think it was interesting because there was a very strong sense of grounding.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, I think you kind of, I don't know what you said exactly. I have no idea where I went. But the sensation was that I was very much kind of in my head, and it was like light and nearly uncomfortable until you told us to kind of come back. And so that was really, really interesting.
Yeah, I did have you, I was having you toggle
Right.
up into the head to notice the difference. So after going down into the belly or the deeper abdomen, having you come back to just notice the difference, because we usually live our life with our awareness up here, our eyes focused outward, so much like exterior and high up. And when I jumped back up in that exercise, I became kind of nervous and anxious. And when I dropped back down, it was like that grounded, and it was just feeling more like I'm connected. I'm more connected internally in myself, and I'm just more connected to feeling resourced, essentially, to like the resource, the feeling of the energy of the earth and around me. So that would be a simple thing. And then, and then from there, being in that space, asking, what is it that I desire? What is it that I need? It's often a very different answer than if we ask from our head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a great practice. And again, going back to your comment about, the jump to better boundaries or healthy boundaries is a big jump for some people. This is one of the steps. This is one of the steps to just do this throughout the day and to listen. And again, it might be like, what do I want for dinner? Or what do I want to order off the menu, the takeout menu or something, It's like if you're doing it from up here, then experiment with like, if I drop in and settle in. Now I ask myself, what would I like for dinner? It will often be a very different answer. So it,
And I want to ask some more questions, but I'll just say read a comment from someone who is viewing, and this person said, "My body asked for more of what I just experienced, more grounding, more connection," and then a love heart.
beautiful, beautiful. And you can give that to yourself. Yes, absolutely. At any time. That's the great thing. At any time.
And I guess this is what you were saying earlier about sourcing from within, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
when you go into that place of grounding, you really know, and then you feel your power. Actually, empowerment. Even it's that thing. But I just want to know again, because when a lot of the time when we are thinking about boundaries, for example,
Mm-hmm.
if we're talking about the office, and someone comes in, boss, maybe someone else coming in and saying, right, I need this by 6 o'clock, and you're like, no. But you wouldn't normally want to say that, right? You normally wouldn't have to. Well, a lot of the time you would say I don't like it, but I'm still going to do it. How are we managing? And this was just an example, but how are we managing that kind of allowing ourselves to follow our groundedness? Maybe I invented a new word. Versus other people and what they expect of us, and all of that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. And obviously this dance with boundaries with other people does get rather complicated. And what I would say is that if our alignment is clear and our own energy is clear and we are clear about what we want, it's much easier to have that dance with another person. So, for example, the boss, what you said, the boss comes in and says, I need this by 6 o'clock. And if I'm not in my body, if I'm not and clear about what I want, and I've got a whole bunch of unprocessed emotions about stuff with my boss, and I've got a lot of unprocessed emotions and things and energy about people asking me for things my entire life and my childhood. If that is all, that distortion and that discord is all in the background, how I can perceive the situation with my boss in that moment is going to be influenced by all that discord from the past. And I'm probably just going to panic, and I'm probably just going to go, I'm a victim. This never works out for me. And, and just see very, very limited possibilities and options. And be like, okay, or no, I hate you and I quit, or whatever, but it becomes more of a reactionary thing because there's so many triggers and so many unprocessed energies and emotions there. Whereas if we're doing some of this work and we're starting to settle in and really be grounded and kind of clean up some of that old stuff, then what happens is we can come from a more empowered place and more of a response and less of a reaction. So the boss comes in and says, I need this by 6 o'clock. It might be like, okay. I rest in, and then I might just say, I understand you need this. I don't think I can physically make that possible. What can we do? What can we do in this situation? Help me problem solve this situation. Or something to that effect. I mean, obviously it's going to depend on the boss and the job and all of that. But my point is that when we're in our power and when we're resourced from within, we have more options. More things become available. And I've had so many clients talk about this. Like, normally I would just, they would say, normally I would just freak out and, not have any options. And then as soon as they started kind of doing this work, it was like, oh, okay, I can come from a powerful place. I can have options. And even if I do have to bust my butt to get this done by 6 o'clock, I can still feel better about myself and the project or whatever in the process. Because that ability to stay in a sense of empowerment is very important.
I think for me, when like a magic word that you just said, or a keyword is the reaction, because yes, when you are reacting, you're definitely in your head, and you're definitely in victimhood, and you're definitely not doing, you're not following your true self. But I really like what you said about reacting, not reacting, responding from a different place.
Yes. And when we can do that for ourselves too, that's beautiful. I mean, I'm thinking of like in my own situation with a chronic autoimmune disease, if my symptoms start to flare up and I start to notice inflammatory symptoms, if I react and freak out and worry, it's not going to help anything. And usually I don't really resource like, oh, what might I do? And how can I work with this with my body? And instead, if I can see it and respond to what's happening It's like, oh, okay, that's happening. My body's not happy right now. What might I be able to do? Okay, I need to make sure I'm eating this way or that way. I need to rest more. And I see it more as a sign, as a message versus a, I'm being punished kind of thing.
Mm. But I would like to sharpen this point a little bit more. I mean, we call
Okay,
this
sure.
the talk, the role of boundaries in healing.
Yes,
Um, yeah, let's sharpen that point a little bit more. I'd love to
sure.
understand it.
Yes. So specifically, what point is it? Tell me a little bit more that you want to sharpen.
Well, just like you said now, also, in your own journey with the healing,
Okay.
you want to pay attention to the message. And I have,
Yes.
I think I understand where you're going with it, but I would love to hear your version of it.
Sure, sure. So, I really feel like everything that happens around us is giving us messages and input. And so if we're having discord with people, having discord with relationships, having issues, having resentment, those symptoms that I described earlier, um, they're giving us messages that things are not fully in alignment. And we need to kind of take action for those to be in better and come into better alignment mentally, physically, emotionally, in our relationships and with energy. So coming more into alignment with the boundaries are like the action step for that. They're like the ability to say, to source within and go, okay, this is what I need. And and especially in that healing journey, being able to express that to oneself and to other people, what it is you need to feel healthy, to feel like you're giving yourself enough space and time, and what you need for your body to be in a state of health and wellness. So listening to those cues is so important. And then creating some alignment and then taking aligned action um, is where the boundaries work comes in both the listening to the cues and getting aligned, as well as taking the aligned action. It's one form of aligned action to me, and an important one, because we are in contact all the time with other people, and they are part of our healing journey, and they are part of our daily, our daily lives. So having clear boundaries and being aligned with that, taking that aligned action in terms of clear boundaries is so important.
I really like
It,
that. I really like that because it's I think especially with healing, as you say, when you are in a illness or pain energy, it's so hard sometimes to communicate exactly what you want or what you really need. Sometimes you're not even
yeah.
clear in yourself about what it is that you want, and then it can be very easy to demand or to blur it out or to get frustrated with the other person
Hmm.
that they don't get you. And again, this is a reaction, right? So now
Yeah.
what you're saying is let's listen. Let's really listen to what
Yeah.
it is, and then find the way to act on that.
Yeah. And I think one important thing about the listening is that, sometimes, especially with pain, because pain is so difficult. I know.
Mm.
But sometimes we're listening to the story instead of listening to, when I talk about listening internally, sometimes people get caught in listening to the pain or listening to the story in their head that is about the pain or
Yeah.
about the problem, about the condition. And this is a little deeper and a little different kind of listening. It's more about listening to the body's energy and listening to, and the energy is in wellness, the energy isn't in wrapped up in the pain. So we want to be able to kind of source in not ignore the pain, but to simply be in a place where we're not caught up in the story of the pain. And that is a very different kind of listening. So, and I feel like it's best done in that lower abdomen, pelvic bowl area. It's a really good skill to have for anyone who's in chronic pain.
Yeah, I think, for those of us who follow that exercise, I think we all felt that. So we're getting towards the end of our conversation. So I just want to let people know you have a little offer that you want to share. So
yeah. I do a lot of different work with people, but one of the things I love doing is exploring more about, obviously, this boundaries work. And so I have a free, what I call heart-centered boundaries breakthrough session. And in this session, I work with people for an hour. We talk about kind of what the issues are, where you want to be, and then I give you some suggestions, some very simple but powerful suggestions that you can work with. So I'm happy to offer that, and if anybody wants to explore that heart-centered boundaries breakthrough session, we'll have the information in the link.
Yeah, absolutely. So all the information, all your social links and everything will be accompanied, will accompany this talk and will be in the description and everything.
Yeah. So just reach out.
Exactly. Just reach out. But Lauri, just before we go, what message do you want to leave our viewers or listeners with?
Well, I think the biggest message is there are possibilities. There are so many possibilities. And when we are in pain or dealing with a chronic illness, we tend to kind of narrow our focus. And when we go inside of ourselves and really start kind of interacting with the energy of the body, listening to the energy of the body, it opens up possibilities. And really, there's a lot of magic and miracles that can happen from those possibilities, and a lot more sense of empowerment. So I really encourage people to keep sourcing within.
I love that. So, Lauri, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you. There's lots of comments here from the people who were watching the live. I'll just read a couple. So one person says, "I would like to take you up on this generous offer." So of course the details will be revealed soon. And then there's another comment saying, "Thank you, Lauri. This was very interesting. I work in trauma, so understand everything you speak. Bless you."
Thank you.
So thank you so much for you for being here. Thank you for everyone watching the live or the replay. And yes, please do leave us any questions or comments. And of course, we'll make sure that Lauri sees them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.